James was the second child of Mary and Joseph. He was born in the early morning hours of April 2nd, 3 BCE, much to Jesus' delight. Jesus was nearly 4 years old when James was born, and he greatly enjoyed his little brother. James and Jesus were great playmates and got along well together. They played together with wood blocks and shavings in the corner of the carpenter shop after James turned 3. Between 4 and 5 years of age, James was being taught the alphabet by Jesus. When James was 10 years old, his father Joseph was killed in a construction accident. Mary took James with her to Sepphoris to see what could be done, but Joseph died before they could get there. At just 14 years old, Jesus became father-brother to James for the rest of his life. Mary turned over the sale of the doves to James at this age. On the other hand, Jesus began sending James up to the camel lot to gather information about world events, since Jesus had much work to do at the carpenter's bench. And he soon took over the homeschooling of his younger siblings, particularly his 3 sisters, a job that Jesus had been doing. When he was 13, he had an important role to play in the serious political crisis that affected Jesus so deeply. James had been secretly rehearsed by the Shazan to give a speech at the appropriate time, bringing to a fairly happy ending a very tense and threatening situation. This same year, James graduated from school and began full-time work in the carpenter shop, making yokes and plows. The next year, with financial pressure having eased, Jesus bought James some new tools and took him to Jerusalem for the Passover, a trip that brought Jesus and James closer. James was growing up to be a well-balanced and even-tempered youth, but he was not so spiritually inclined as Jesus, although he was quite interested in Jesus and his religious activities. As James approached young manhood, Jesus saw fit to begin training him to take over the role of head of the family, a role that he had performed successfully for 4 years. When James married, he moved from the Nazareth home, but he still remained as head and protector of the family until Joseph was ready to fully assume direction of the family. James was baptized with Jesus, and he was also present at the Cana wedding. James took an interest in Jesus' activities with the new apostles, and even sat in on much of the early training that Jesus gave them. But he was ultimately disappointed when Jesus did not include him in his apostolic plans. This was the start of a long estrangement between Jesus and James, one that continued until the end of Jesus' life, and that caused James great personal sorrow when he realized what he had lost by not being more forgiving of his father-brother. But James was favored with a one-on-one visit with Jesus in his 3rd resurrection appearance in Bethany. And in his later years, he was a principal actor in the early Jerusalem church.